Germany's decision to place yet another large order for 120mm tank ammunition from Rheinmetall is more than just a routine procurement update, it's a clear signal of how Europe's defense landscape is shifting and how seriously Berlin has begun treating long-term military readiness. For years, the Bundeswehr was criticized for chronic shortages, limited stockpiles, and a peacetime mentality that no longer matched the realities of Europe's security environment. But this latest move, part of a framework agreement that now stretches to 2030 and is valued at around €4 billion, shows that Germany is finally embracing a sustained rearmament cycle driven by both national needs and NATO-wide pressure. And when you dig beneath the surface, this order reveals several layers of strategic intent, reshaping not only Germany's armored forces but also the broader European approach to deterrence. What stands out in the announcement is that Rheinmetall isn't just providing a single shipment. The agreement covers hundreds of thousands of rounds, both combat and training ammunition, designed for the 120mm smoothbore gun of the Leopard 2. This weapon system is the backbone of European heavy armor, fielded by more than a dozen NATO and EU nations. So when Germany boosts its ammunition production pipeline, the effect ripples far beyond its own borders. In practical terms, this order supports interoperability, standardization, and the collective readiness of Europe's tank fleets. In political terms, it shows Germany positioning itself as a central logistics provider, a pillar of the alliance's armored capability, and a state willing to spend big to fix the vulnerabilities that the war in Ukraine has made impossible to ignore. For years, ammunition stockpiles were an overlooked part of defense planning. The assumption was that Europe would have time to ramp up production in a crisis. That assumption collapsed after 2022, when Ukraine's front line consumed artillery and tank ammunition at rates unseen since the Cold War. Suddenly, Europeans realized their industrial bases were hollow, their storage depots underfilled, and their supply chains dangerously slow. Germany's framework agreement with Rheinmetall, extended in 2023 and now generating new large-scale orders, is essentially a long-term correction to years of underinvestment. By contracting predictable, multi-year demand, Berlin is trying to help Rheinmetall stabilize production lines, expand output, and guarantee that ammunition is available when needed, not months or years later. Another important point is the dual nature of the ammunition being ordered: combat rounds and training rounds. Combat rounds replenish Germany's strategic reserves and ensure Leopard 2 units can actually fight in a high-intensity conflict. Training rounds, meanwhile, indicate a shift in operational mentality. The Bundeswehr is preparing for an era in which armored training cycles intensify, readiness rates increase, and tank crews don't have to ration live fire drills as they did in the past. The emphasis on training ammo is a sign that Germany wants not only well-stocked depots but also better trained crews capable of executing modern combined arms tactics, something that requires consistent, realistic live-fire exercises. This shift also ties into Germany's broader rearmament commitments under the €100 billion Special Defense Fund announced in 2022. That fund was a response to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, but political momentum mattered just as much as money. Germany needed to signal to NATO allies, especially Eastern European states, that it would no longer lag behind in defense modernization. Rebuilding its Leopard 2 ammunition reserves is one of the foundational steps toward restoring Germany's credibility as Europe's largest economy and a central military actor. Without ammunition, even the most advanced tanks are just steel statues. With reliable, large-scale, long-term ammunition procurement, Germany ensures that its armor is not only modern but also operationally relevant. Rheinmetall's statement accompanying the announcement gives even more context. The company emphasizes its role as a major supplier of 120mm tank ammunition for the Bundeswehr and other Leopard 2 operators across NATO. This isn't corporate bragging, it's industrial positioning. As European nations collectively expand their ammunition orders, Rheinmetall is securing its place at the center of a long-term supply architecture. The more countries rely on a single supplier, the more consistent production becomes, lowering per-unit costs and reducing logistical fragmentation. Germany's order effectively reinforces Rheinmetall's status as Europe's ammunition hub, which benefits not only the German army but also allied militaries that depend on the same rounds. What's also notable is the explicit reference to the current security situation. This is diplomatic shorthand for a Europe facing unprecedented uncertainty, Russia's continued aggression, the long-term implications of the Ukraine war, doubts about U.S. strategic focus, and the need for Europe to expand its own defense autonomy. Ammunition stockpiles are a critical indicator of a country's preparedness. When a state increases them dramatically, it's acknowledging that deterrence is no longer abstract, it requires concrete, measurable capability. Germany's political leadership has clearly accepted that reality. By pushing contracts through 2030, Berlin ensures continuity even beyond this government's term, creating a durable procurement ecosystem insulated from political fluctuation. There's also a structural dimension to this decision. Europe's defense industry can only scale if customers place predictable long-term orders. One-off emergency purchases are inefficient and destabilizing. Multi-year frameworks create stable output that can match wartime consumption patterns. Germany's deal is exactly the kind of long-cycle contract that defense analysts have been urging European governments to adopt. It gives Rheinmetall confidence to expand factories, hire more workers, and invest in new manufacturing technology. And because Rheinmetall supplies Leopard 2 ammunition to many NATO countries, production increases in Germany directly improve the alliance's overall ammunition availability. For NATO, this move is strategically important. The Leopard 2 remains one of the most capable Western tanks in service, and many of the nations that operate it are frontline states or key contributors to NATO's forward defense posture. Ensuring a steady supply of 120mm rounds strengthens the alliance's armored forces as a whole. In a high-intensity conflict scenario, ammunition consumption would be immense, and shared supply lines among Leopard 2 operators would be vital. Germany's investment into the ammunition pipeline therefore enhances not just national readiness but also collective defense resilience. Ultimately, this order should be viewed as a milestone in Germany's ongoing transformation from a reluctant military actor to a proactive one. It is not flashy like announcing new tanks or fighter jets, but it is far more fundamental. Ammunition is the backbone of real combat capability. Without it, even the best-equipped armies fail. Germany's commitment to securing hundreds of thousands of rounds through 2030 signals that Berlin is planning for long-term readiness, not short-term political optics. And for Europe, facing a security environment defined by unpredictability, that kind of strategic continuity might be the most important development of all.